What's going on, guys? It's Adirondack Upper James Toyota, and today we've got my favorite 7-seater SUV that we currently offer in our lineup. It's going to be a Highlander XSE trim level, so stay tuned and let's check it out. If you guys are in the market for a new or used vehicle, do not forget to click the link in the top of our description. All right, guys, we're gonna be starting up front on this Highlander XSE. Now, this is a 2023 model, and the reason I chose this one for today's video is simply because in 2022 to 2023, the Highlanders made one of the biggest controversial changes, and that was saying goodbye to that old V6 and introducing a 2.4 turbo 4-cylinder, which makes about 264 horsepower with 310 pound-feet of torque. Now, a lot of clients weren't really too sure if they liked that idea. Smaller engine, and people loved that V6 that was shared amongst our entire lineup. Now, I can say now that since we're in 2025, these engines are actually pretty great. I think the extra power that they give versus the V6 and the better fuel efficiency is definitely something that consumers wanted, and I'm really happy that this is the change that Toyota ended up making. Now, talking upfront styling, I'm gonna be talking down low on this front grille because the XSE is the only model in our lineup that comes with this very sporty front grille. Now, I know it's just a Highlander and it's no vehicle like a Supra or a GR86 or the GR Corolla, but I still think for a normal vehicle on the road that you see a whole lot of, I think that styling wise, Toyota did a phenomenal job with this vehicle. And stay tuned because on the inside of the vehicle, I think what they've done on the inside too definitely makes it a bit more family friendly in case you guys need those extra seats. Now, taking a closer peek onto the side profile of this vehicle, it's featured in my favorite color on this vehicle, which is going to be magnetic gray metallic. Now, this is almost my dream spec. This has black interior. You could spec this to cockpit red, which is the same interior offered on the Camry. Now, it is definitely a more vibrant and bright red. However, I do think on a vehicle like this, having that sportier look and having the sportier inside with the red seats, I think Toyota did a pretty cool job, designing this vehicle and speccing it out to really make it pop on the market, amongst so many different SUVs that you could choose from. Now, getting a little bit closer onto these wheels, I do like Toyota's decision to go all black. I think an all black wheel, especially on the Highlander, definitely complements this vehicle pretty well. Now, depending on the color that this is actually offered in, it could be white, it could be silver, it could be red, magnetic gray metallic, black, whatever the color it was, I think that these 20-inch alloy wheels, Toyota did a pretty good job at styling up this vehicle. You guys let me know down below in the comments. Now, one of the really cool things on the XSE Highlander is just what Toyota has done styling wise. And I think what they have done on these small little details really, amplify this trim level and make it pretty unique in my opinion. Now, I love the fact that Toyota has integrated smoked headlights and tail lamps directly from the factory. So they're not a huge tint. You really can't tell if you're looking for it, but basically around the rim of your tail light and your headlights, it's a little bit more tinted. So it's actually pretty cool that it gives it more of like this blacked out look, which I think rounds off this vehicle, obviously with the blacked out wheels. So, I think it's just one little small touch that Toyota did that I'm a huge fan of. Now, the funny thing is, since the Grand Highlander is here, obviously that was released in 2024, it's interesting. Toyota offered that the Grand Highlander, the trunk actually opened a lot quicker. I think it's just over a full second faster than the outgoing Highlander because it does actually open up a bit slower. And it's funny being around one of these right now, just simply because the Grand has really taken over the 7 or 8 passenger vehicle market in Toyota versus this Highlander. It's actually pretty funny to see how slow this opens up compared to the Grand. So that's just one thing that I've noticed just simply being behind this vehicle for a few seconds. Now, obviously looking at trunk space, I can basically sit in here and I'm right on the seats. Now, if you were ever driving with this vehicle and having all 7 seats occupied, it is definitely a little bit more squishy. Now, say if you had smaller kids that could fit into the 3rd row, then that's definitely ideal because someone at my size, I cannot fit into the 3rd row. However, if you were that smaller family that only needed, say 5 people or, 4 people in the vehicle, you could easily fit one person pretty comfortable in the back and then have 2 people in the second row, which is obviously your captain's chairs, and then 2 people in the front. So it definitely utilizes a bit more space in case you want that larger vehicle, without actually, sacrificing, the space on the inside. So if you guys say we're in the market for, a vehicle that seats 4 people, 5 people pretty comfortably, you could easily sit in the middle of these, last 3 seats in your third row, and you and your family could be pretty comfortable on a long ride. All right, guys, now taking a closer peek onto the inside of the 23 XSE. Now, this is, like I mentioned on the outside, the closest thing to my dream spec on one of these vehicles. I think magnetic gray metallic with the cockpit red interior has to be my favorite. White on red has to be a close second favorite for me too, but I still do like the black look on the inside for this car. Now, from 2022 to 2023, the Highlander got a lot of changes. The engine was obviously a massive one. The biggest one though on the inside was that Toyota finally integrated wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto for any inside users for this vehicle. Everything else was plug and play beforehand. Now it's all wireless, which is great. That's obviously still the same way things are tracking forward, for this current model year, which is 2025. 2026, I'm not too sure yet because we don't have any of those yet. However, on the inside, I think the XSE kind of gives you best of both worlds. There's only a few little things that I would like to add onto the inside of this vehicle. Number one, if you guys have seen my videos before, you know exactly what I'm gonna say. It's gonna be a panoramic sunroof. Absolutely, I like the full moonroof for this vehicle. Having it opened up into the second row definitely makes the inside feel a little bit bigger. Now, the other big one that I'm just gonna be, a huge fan of in, a limited grade for a Highlander is going to be a JBL sound system. I think that the standard sound system is actually pretty good. And I remember when I first ordered my GR86 and, the base one came with 6 speakers, the premium comes with 8 speakers, I was, kind of leaning towards getting, the premium, and definitely the speakers made me, make that decision a bit easier for myself. However, on one of these, even the base sound system that we offer in our vehicles are actually still pretty good. Most of the ones in 2025, I've driven basically our entire lineup, and I think that Toyota has actually done a pretty good job. Do I need the JBLs? No. Would I want them in this if it was an option? Absolutely. And sadly, you can't spec it that way. If you want a JBL, you have to move to a limited grade, but that's okay. I'll take it exactly the way it is right now. Now, convenience features wise, Highlander has definitely, packed a good punch with, adding a few nice touches. Number one, I love these seats. I love just the little different, details they've put on, the bottom of the seats and your lower back section of the seats, which are going to be heated. They're not cooled in this vehicle. You'd have to move up to a limited grade to get the cooled seats. Another couple things I do like, I love the fact that it has a wireless charger and it's actually in a position that makes a lot of sense. I see, a lot of vehicles that we have, in Toyota's lineup, in different manufacturers' lineups, that I definitely think the wireless charger and the usability of space on the inside for your front 2 passengers really, doesn't add up in my opinion. I think that having this wireless charger right there, you simply place your phone there, starts charging, it's great. Now, the only downfall to the wireless charger, which I have to add, is that it really doesn't add a whole lot of charge to your phone, if I'm being honest, unless you're on a really, really long drive. When I say a long drive, fill it up and drive until it's empty, and then obviously go fill it up, back again when your gas is definitely low. That is when you would see the charge probably go up a bit. But typically whenever I drive one of our vehicles with a wireless charger, specifically on the Highlander, it just kind of keeps the battery at exactly what it was when it started. If you really wanted to get, all the charging power in the world, you got a couple USB-C ports here, or you have a USB port. You can obviously plug that in, plug it into your phone. That will charge it up the fastest. Now, couple things that, I think is an interesting touch they've done on this vehicle. I know that drive modes are a very important thing these days, having, different off-road modes, snow modes, stuff like that. I find it interesting, having a vehicle like this, Toyota always puts in their sport mode, stuff like that. And that obviously stays true onto, the new Grand Highlander and onto the new generation Highlanders. But I always find that funny because a lot of people ask me, Aiden, if I put the car into sport mode, what does it do? So I flip into sport mode, my little tachometer basically changed to be a little bit red now, and it just says sport. Pretty cool. Now, driving this vehicle in all the different modes, I can tell you, it doesn't change a whole lot. It definitely holds your revs a little bit higher. They say throttle response has improved, steering has tightened up a bit. I don't really know if I agree with that because obviously you're not buying this vehicle, to go super fast. Maybe if you want a Sequoia or, a Land Cruiser or something that has a more powerful engine, and a drivetrain in it, maybe that is more catered, to you. However, I still think what they've done on the inside, is a pretty great job, and it's a good bang for your buck on the Highlander side. Now, I did mention this is my favorite styled, XSE and 7-passenger that we offer in our lineup. Some people are gonna argue this with the gas model Grand Limited. Now, that has a lot of the things that I just mentioned, instead of the blacked out, 20-inch wheels, they're 20-inch chrome wheels on the Highlander, or the Grand Highlander, I should say. It does come with the full moonroof. It does come with a JBL sound system. It comes with the cooled front seats. Those are all things I would really like in this vehicle. However, price tag on one of these versus, the Limited Grand, it's definitely a little bit of a difference. Now, would I pay that difference? Well, I don't really need, a 7 or an 8-passenger right now in my current life. But if, say I wasn't in the car business and I saw these two vehicles, I honestly do like the styling of this over the Grand. I think the Grand's a gorgeous vehicle, but I think just the front end and the way this looks, I really do like it. So you guys let me know down below which way you would be, persuaded to go. And obviously there is talk that maybe in the next few years, they're going to, exclude the regular Highlander from our lineup and just move to the Grand because it is selling so well on today's market. I kind of hope they don't, because I do like this vehicle and I think that there is a market for this, for consumers in our area. So if you guys are a consumer that are looking for it, let us know. Click the link down below in the description. It takes us to our page to see exactly what new and used vehicles we have on our lot for you. Alrighty, now taking a closer peek onto the rear seat of this XSE. Now, number one thing I love in our SUVs that are 7-passenger, I love the practicality and how much you can use this second row. Now, if you have small little kids, you can easily, get them to walk in between into your third row. Very, very simple to do so. If you ever needed to move these seats forward or backwards, tilt them down, it's also really accessible. I know the 60-40 split, it's a bit easier to obviously put the one side down that has the single seat. Toyota tries to make it a bit easier, having, the back seats a little bit more heavy. So the moment you lift up that latch and kind of move it forward, gravity kind of just takes it and lets it fall for you. However, I just think having a vehicle configured this way, whenever I need a vehicle, for me and my future family, I am for sure getting a vehicle configured as a 7-passenger vehicle. I just think practicality is so much easier in one of these vehicles versus an 8-passenger. I've been in them. Obviously, I don't have a family yet, so I haven't necessarily seen that in my day-to-day life, but I have a lot of customers who do have a family, and they all tell me having the 7-passenger vehicle is just such an easier task to load people and stuff in and out of. Now, away from the configuration of this vehicle, I'm gonna get back to, just the size of this and what I like in the second row here. So obviously I'm a taller person. I like the seating of this. You put this little armrest down, I'm pretty comfortable. I could actually recline this back a little bit more if I wanted to, but I've got a pretty far back driving position just because obviously I'm taller and I left the seat exactly where I am. So I've got quite a lot of room. I've got a couple USB-C charging ports in case I ever need to charge up a phone for a long road trip, built-in sun shaders on the side. The only thing I'm gonna, maybe say I would like, it'd be nice to have the heated seats in the back here. Not that I would ever really be, in the second row for one of these vehicles, and obviously the moonroof. But to be honest, I think what they have done to really, exaggerate, the different driving positions you could be on the inside of these, I think Toyota did a pretty good job. And comparing this to the Grand Highlander, they're both really great vehicles. It just depends on how large you want your 7 or 8-passenger vehicle to be. So if that is you, I would always tell someone, come test drive these two vehicles, because a lot of the times I have clients that come in here saying, Aiden, I'm really looking at a Highlander. I want something for my family, something comfortable, safe, and reliable. And they're set on the Highlander. And I always kind of throw them a little bit of a curveball and just say, for relatively a very close, ballpark of price you are going to pay on the Highlander, let's take a peek at a Grand, because I think, value for money, they are two really, really close, comparable vehicles in our current lineup. So that if that is you and you are, debating which way to go, drive both. I always say, go touch one, go feel one, see how you fit with you and your family, because one of these two vehicles is definitely the perfect family car for you down the road. All right, guys, to wrap up some final numbers on this 2023 Highlander XSE, we're gonna be talking about the fuel efficiency. Now, combined between highway and city driving, one of these bad boys averages 10.3 liters per 100, which is actually quite the improvement over the previous generation that had that older V6 in it. Now, talking price point is where things will change slightly. 2023 MSRP for this vehicle was $50,650 versus the 2024 price, which is $54,045. Obviously, both of those numbers, you have to add freight and PDI, subtotal of tax, licensing, dealer charges, and government fees. However, for the mid 50s, this is still a pretty awesome vehicle to be getting yourself into. You guys can let me know down below in the comments if you guys have one or if you're in the market to get into one. If you guys did like this video, please do not forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of our future Toyota related content. And I'll check you guys out in the next video.